Hi everyone. I know we're still waiting. I'm just setting up the rest of this very complicated technical stream and then we'll get started. stopped streaming, that's why. Hello, everyone. I think we're back. I think you've just been seeing my desktop picture for like 10 minutes. Okay. I think we're back. Please let me know if we're not. Half the people left. That's fine. That's my fault. This is a very difficult stream to get in. But I am confident that we will prevail, and that this will work out. I guess I'll just wait until people come back, maybe. I don't have any music to play anymore, so I'm not really sure what to do. But I guess I'll just keep talking until people come back. I think people are coming back. I see people joining, and you can see me attempting to. This time I have a timeline, which is exciting because that means you can actually see what I'm doing. I just removed it just because it's a very weird way of displaying it. Basically, if I move my screen to anything else, you can see everything else on my screen. Thank you for $5. I will make sure to match that. So yes, for everyone who's joining, and now more people are joining, so let me get the timeline back up. The purpose of this stream is, yes, to talk about how I made one of my favorite videos, I would say, but also to raise some funds for the protesters, the GoFundMes, everything that's just going on in America right now. It's really tragic, but I think a really great way we can continue to support people who are fighting is monetarily. So like I said at the beginning of the chat, or I guess I typed at the beginning of the chat, is I just sent a donation of $50 to National Bailout. Their whole goal is to ultimately, at the very end of the day, end mass incarceration, but for now, it's to help bail out protesters, because cash bail is one way that people are locked up, and sending our money can literally help them just get out. It's a very small thing, but it's a very powerful thing. So I sent $50, and then I also would like to match $50 more. That means that anybody in this chat can donate to that same fund. You can also donate to anywhere else you'd like. I've put a bunch more links in the description. If you have donated, make sure to put that in the chat, or you can use the super chat option, which is just sends the money directly to me. Either way, I will make sure that to match every donation up to $50, which means I need you guys to help me get there, because that means ultimately we can get to $150 of donations today, and I think that'll be really useful. So I hope people can hear me. It would be useful if you could tell me if you can hear me. Thank you for 25. Oh wow, we're already almost to 50. So that's really exciting. We only have $20 more left to match. We could even match more. Please, as last time, I'm just gonna talk about this video from like top to bottom, everything I thought about it. I tried to make this a little better quality, but if you were here for the first like 20 minutes, that was not the case. So we're gonna do the best we can. Like before, if you have any questions about this video, about my editing in general, how I chose anything, what goes on in my head, please make sure to send them. I love talking about myself, so I don't mind answering them at all. I think one way maybe we can start is we can just play the video. So I can remember what this goes like. I haven't actually watched it in a little bit. And then we can start talking. So yeah, make sure if you haven't already, try to send a donation. Even $1 helps. Also, make sure to send any questions that you have to the chat. And you can also use the super chat to donate, because I can be monetized now. Also, this video is monetized, so any ads that people will watch, and I encourage if people are watching this after the stream has ended and you see ads, please don't skip them, because that is how money can also be generated off this video, and I can also then donate that to National Bailout or other relevant funds. Okay, let's get started. and we'll just start with the video.
The prodigal sister has arrived. If she ever finds out that her father is Valentine.
Wait a minute.
I'd like to know more about Valentine's
Mr.
children.
Clary, Valentine's. You're telling me this girl shows up out of nowhere? You convinced my brother she's Valentine's daughter?
Your Valentine's
Your
daughter?
Valentine's children. Clary Fairchild.
Valentine's daughter.
You look just like your mother.
Unfortunately.
See if there's a resemblance.
Child.
Striking. Yeah, don't look like
I think I'd rather sit on this bed. Don't you?
Are you sure? What? Gonna help him?
The next thing I know, Jason's gone. She's up there. I don't even know this girl. How do you trust her?
Isn't that hard to recognize your own brother?
Hello, sister.
What we are seeing is the same pattern Valentine showed before the birth.
What happened back then is happening again.
You've planted the seeds of bending of the law, wanton defiance of plain order.
You say she's what?
Except when they got there.
You let it go.
The bass is absolutely terrible. I apologize for that.
I don't know. I didn't even have to kill him. Just, I had to draw a stupid room, and I couldn't. Yeah, part of me, but I couldn't.
I underestimated you. You are my greatest creation. Not Jonathan. Not Jason.
How could I possibly trust you?
You are. Because I'm your brother. This is what I've always wanted. To be with my family.
You and I are not family.
Because we're actually not that different, you and me.
This time, you're not coming back.
I intend to prove that to you. But you will never be rid of me. You are a Morgenstern.
Yes. I am. I'm Valentine's daughter. Nobody there trusts me. That's not what good is, Jonathan. Killing like that should never feel good.
But I'm also a Fairchild. I am not my father.
Terrible you can tell father.
I'm a victim here too.
On the shores of Lake Lynn, watching his life slip from your hands. How did that feel?
We all are.
I will not go back to dust and shadows. Your survival just allow me.
I am not like you.
I was never yours.
So make sure you do it for him.
You have taken that away.
And I protect my family.
And not yourself.
That empty feeling eats away your soul. It makes you feel like you want to die.
I can feel it, Jason. This darkness, it's growing. It's eating me up inside. This is not who I am.
This isn't you talking.
This isn't who you are, Clary. Come home with me.
Take my hand.
After day after day, it never stops.
This is who I am. You still believe in stopping demons, don't you?
I'd expect this behavior from a proper Morgenstern.
Not from you.
I am a proper Morgenstern.
I'll take that blade and use it.
Very cool, very fun. This video was a lot to do. This is one of my favorite videos. Thank you. I really like this video, and I'm really glad that people have like overall responded to it. It's one of my highest viewed videos, and it's like another in the long line of series of Clary character studies. Also, we got another donation of $50, which already goes past the matching of $50 that I wanted to do. So I will try to match more than 50, but at this point we've already hit $80, which is really exciting, which means total today already has been, I can't count, 130, I think. Anyway, this video, I'm just gonna talk about it from beginning to end. If you have any questions, if you have any reactions, please let me know. This video, so I don't know if you noticed, but the way I constructed this video, and what a weird, like, thumbnail to stop on. I'm gonna try and stop on something that's, like, moderately nicer to look at. Here, there's this one. She's just having a good time. So also I apologize for my computer's sound. I tried to get the audio differently, but this is not my area of expertise, so we all just suffer. So this video is comprised of 3 songs, actually. I don't know if people picked up on that, but there is the first song, which is that beginning section where everybody's talking over each other. It's kind of scary, and it's like these horns in the background. That's one song. And that was inspired by a video by Zurich23M. He made a video for The Expanse. Here's your daily Expanse advertisement to please watch the show. He made a video for that show using this song, and it was basically the same technique of these overlapping voices and kind of building the tension and things like that. The song is called Dark Matter by 12 Titans Music, and I just thought the idea was so cool, and it was kind of different from what I'm used to when I edit, but it was a cool way to like test it creatively. The second song is Max Richter. So Max Richter is a great composer. I think we should all stand him. It's called And Know the Place for the First Time. I'm sure it's probably from The Leftovers because that's like the only thing this man does. But I chose that because of a video, and all of these videos I'm talking about are linked in the original video in the description. That song was used in a video about Game of Thrones, about Daenerys Targaryen, and it's about her like journey as a queen and like failing and all that stuff. And that song is really, really similar to the last song. So the middle song, And Know the Place for the First Time, is this section where she's like waking up and she's like stressing out and not having a great time, and she's like, my family is like a bunch of genocidal freaks and I'm not like them and all this stuff. That's that middle song, And Know the Place for the First Time. Then the last song is called Dawn of Faith. Yes, I do say please watch critically acclaimed Amazon Prime series The Expanse. I don't know if it's won any awards, but in my mind it has. So I would also like to say Golden Globe nominated, Emmy Award winning series, The Expanse. This last song starts kind of at my favorite part. I think it's everybody's favorite part. I'll play it.
You will never be rid of me. You are Morgenstern.
Yes, I am. I'm Valentine's daughter.
So that transition is actually 2 different songs. The first one that's ending is that Max Richter song, and the one that's starting is called Dawn of Faith by Eternal Eclipse. If you've ever watched the OA, it was like in its season 2 trailer, and I had literally not stopped thinking about it since then. Eternal Eclipse is also just becoming a really popular artist to use in videos now. I feel like I see a ton of people that have styles similar to mine using it, and it's really cool. And I think they have like a kind of a secretive tier of people who have access to music before it's released, and I would like to be part of that tier, and this is my formal application, and I hope it gets accepted. Thank you. Anyway, so that's the third song, and that's how I made this video. So I never used 3 different songs before, which was cool, but that's not even the most interesting part. The point of this video, if you didn't already realize, is that it was meant to capture like dark Clary, so like the Clary Morgenstern side. Clary is also my favorite character, and I also like the video. I think the videos I do with her are the most in-depth. They're just, they're cool. Really melted. Thank you. It was interesting trying to merge these songs together, and I'm glad it turned out well. But yeah, so if you have watched Shadowhunters in its entirety, and I mean literally its entirety, because the issue didn't really happen until like 18, which is the fourth to last episode of the entire show. There is this concept of Clary going dark. Also, let's put it back here. There's this concept of Clary going dark, and the show handled it in a way. They certainly executed it on screen. And people were not super excited about that because it didn't really use the strength of Clary's character to make its argument. I think I'm just like pontificating. So I didn't like how the show did it. A lot of people didn't like how the show did it. I am sorry, there's traffic outside my house, so there's a massive truck about to pass by. It's a fire truck. Anyway, I was not happy about it. Other people were not happy about it. And I was like, hey, wait a second. I am in a position where I can do a retcon, basically. Something I always try to do with my videos is just explore like a facet of a character that has not been as explored as it could be, whether by like fans who just don't think about it as much, or bringing light to a part of the character that has a lot of evidence behind it. Oh wow, that's cool that you met her twice. And thank you for the compliment. Also, as people are coming in and coming out, please try to make a donation if you haven't already, and I will continue to try and match it. Anyway, where was I? This video, yeah, I just didn't like how, I feel like I've said I don't like how the show did it like 6 times, but I will say it again. And I was in a position where I could do the opposite. I was like, wait, if I am so heated about this, why don't I just, that's true, why don't I just make the Dark Clary that I always wanted to see? Because there was enough evidence in the text, and in this case the text is the show, there was enough evidence to make that claim. Because we all know this account is Clary Hive, we are always in support of her, we know that she's capable of doing some pretty messed up stuff and wanting to do it, not just being under control by some whatever spell. So I was like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just make that claim. So I'm gonna try and go like section by section, because I think I get to make a pretty clear argument versus like in the last video that we talked about, the I was supposed to say human sacrifice. That's not what it's called. A hero sacrifice. That was made of like 15 different mini plots to form this giant plot. Whereas this video, the last Morgenstern, is a little more simple. So this first section uses that first song, the, what was it, 12, Dark Matter by 12 Titans Music or something. I'm pretty sure I just butchered the name. This section is the sort of rise. Like, it's kind of the prequel, I would say, right? Like, you have all these people who are telling Clary who she should be, and what her family means for how she will turn out. And that can be really messed up on a 18-year-old girl. But the whole thing about it, and again, this is why I called it the last Morgenstern, it's really emphasizing the Morgenstern identity. So the reason so many people in the beginning of the show hated Clary, and kind of throughout the show, is because her dad was a like genocidal tyrant. Her mom was not doing much to alleviate that. Her brother was, well, her 2 brothers, I guess, because she has 1, but you have 2 different instances of them. But in both identities, her brother was also just killing people left and right. So the Morgensterns were not doing too hot, and so that's a big legacy that is being left to her, and she has to grapple with that. So all this first section is really just like people being like, you are Valentine's daughter, you're the brother of Jonathan Morgenstern. The uprising that happened, right? You have this.
I've had a Valentine show before the uprising.
They're saying what happened again can happen now. I think the console is saying like this is the same thing that happened when Valentine caused the uprising, all that stuff. Like all that is trying to say like we know how you're gonna turn out. All these people are telling Clary like you are going to be just as bad as your family. And I also tried to make, like, little parallels within that. Like, there's this one section right here, towards the beginning.
There's Valentine.
I'd like to know more about Valentine's children.
Clary, Valentine's. You're telling me this girl shows up out of nowhere? You can kiss my brother. She's Valentine's daughter.
Your Valentine's
Your
daughter?
Valentine's children.
So anytime someone says, like, you're Valentine's daughter, I try to find somebody else who's saying it, or who's saying it in a different way. So either it's, like, 2 clips of somebody saying, like, you're Valentine's daughter, or it's the first clip and someone saying, you're Valentine's daughter. The second clip is, like, your Valentine's children. It just keeps moving and moving and moving. On top of that, you have this one little section, and it's Alec, actually. You have this line, and he's like, you're telling me that this girl shows up out of nowhere, and she's Valentine's daughter. And then I overlaid that with another quote by Alec, and he says the same thing. He's like, this girl showed up out of nowhere. Like, why do you trust her? And it's cool because it's kind of like just these lines coming at you again and again and again to really solidify that this is a problem that has existed, like, for the entire show. And I really liked that. And then there's this one part, I marked it. There's this one part where it just kind of quiets, and to me it gets a little bit creepy. This part. That little, like, head tilt freaks me out. And then that is paired with the song, what's it called? It's paired with the song, like, with the horns coming in. Trying to donate, but I can't. My Google Pay is probably... That's no problem. If you donate after, feel free to comment. If you can use the super chat, that's also a way that it gets sent to me, and then I can just donate it. But whatever way works. And thank you for trying. So there's this one thing I do. Oh yeah, so that was a creepy section. One thing I really like in this beginning part, and after this there's really not much to talk about. This whole first section is just parallels. But one thing I like is this little thing here. So you have this quote, right? This is the Seelie Queen. And the full quote is that the Seelie Queen says, I would like to know more about Valentine's children. And the word children is the key here. And then you have that, and then you have the next scene, and you have all this stuff, blah, blah. You have this quote where, again, she's like, Valentine's children. Then, and I'm going to play this.
Valentine's children. Clary Fairchild.
Valentine's daughter.
They look just like your mother.
Unfortunately,
There was a
child.
striking. Living around the same bit.
So I thought what's really interesting is that you have a couple quotes where people are like Valentine's children, but in the at this quote with the Seelie Queen, Clary's like, there are no children. She's like, I'm the only child, because Jonathan at this point she thinks is dead, I think. Yeah, at this point, like, she doesn't know that he's still alive. But I also thought that was interesting to pair with Maris Lightwood being like, Fairchild, because she's correcting Clary in that scene, because Clary's like, I'm Clary Frey, and Maris Lightwood is like, actually you're Clary Fairchild. And I thought that correction is kind of like a fun connection to this part where Clary's like, actually I'm just a child. Like, just the word child to combat children, I thought was like cool. I think it was a parallel someone else had actually set up first. Maybe on another video or like on a Tumblr gift set or something. It's not my idea, but I thought it was really cool. But yeah, I really liked this section. And I think the last thing I'll say about this section is this ends with this part. This section ends with Clary closing her eyes. And I think a common theme in this video is rebirth, in a sense. And the way I tried to sorry, that was a motorcycle. The way I tried to convey that sense of rebirth is these visuals of Clary opening and closing her eyes. So here, if she's closing her eyes, right, then she's like technically dying. Not really, but you know what I mean? Like, she's ending this chapter. And you have some clips of her getting hurt and things like that to kind of pair with that. Like, this is the close of something. So now we need to open. So in this next section...
What happened?
Hey!
I don't know. I didn't even have to kill him. Just, I had to draw a stupid room, and I couldn't.
So that whole section is just her waking up a bunch of times. And I like that the music here is a little more calmer. Like, that first section is very tense, very stressful, in my opinion. Like, you know something's coming, but you don't know what. And then to follow up with this section, which is a little more, like, ruminative, I think is the word, where you're really just thinking about, like, everything that's happening and her trying to really contend with this legacy, this Morgenstern legacy that she's trying to reject. Meditative is the word I'm thinking of. It's almost creepy that we didn't follow up that tense music with a more tense, like, with things blowing up. Things are not blowing up yet, and that's what's kind of scary. We don't know when she's gonna blow up. We don't know when things are gonna change, but we know right now she's feeling incredibly conflicted. One of my fave things to overanalyze. Yes, it's something the opening closing eyes thing is not even something that I really had thought about, and it's sort of just something I kind of just threw in, like, as I was making the video. But since I knew that I wanted her to end the video with her opening to her demon eyes, things kind of just spiraled from there. So I'm glad that we all like it. And then this part of the section is something I really like this part. So let's finish this section.
Yeah, part of me. But I couldn't.
I underestimated you. You are my greatest creation. Not Jonathan. Not Chase.
How could I possibly trust you?
You are.
So that quote, you can tell that there are certain quotes of relating to Clary's journey that are like, oops, that quote, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. That quote is like, there are certain quotes of Clary's journey that I constantly think about, and this is one of those. Sorry that I stopped on this very, very ugly picture of Valentine, but, what he's saying is that I underestimated you. You are my greatest creation, not Jonathan, not Jace, you are. And that is a quote that I've actually used a couple times, just because it's, like, just so great, because it's very specifically, it's very deliberate dialogue, because if you have an encyclopedia of the show like I do, Valentine has said almost the exact same thing to the other two. He's talked to Jace about saying, you are my greatest creation. He said that in season 2, episode 10, when they were both fighting over the soul sword, and Valentine had manipulated Jace into activating it and killing all these downworlders and everything. And then Valentine says it again to Jonathan in season 2, episode 16, because Jonathan's confronting him about, like, sending him to hell, because that's not a great thing to do to your kid. And Valentine's like, well, I don't regret creating you to be like this, because you're my greatest creation. And it's manipulative, right? He's pitting these kids against each other, but he only sees them as his experiments. And so Valentine is kind of doing the same thing here. He's trying to make her his most favorite experiment. And I really like the quote. Because if you remember the scene, she actually says, like, I was never yours. She's like, I'm not going to be another one of your experiments. And that's what makes Clary so different to Jonathan or Jace. Clary was the one child who grew up without the influence of Valentine, without his abusive household. And so she's kind of the only person who's able to reject his manipulations, because she doesn't have this unfortunate need to please him, to be liked and cared for by him. So anyway, that's a sidetrack. If you want to know more about that, you can watch the other Clary video, Ignis Aurum Probat, which is about this kind of stuff. This section is also, I really like this section.
Because I'm your brother. This is what I've always wanted. To be with my family.
You and I are not family.
Because we're actually not that different, you and me.
This time, you're not coming back.
I intend to prove that to you.
You will never be rid of me.
So this section is pretty cool because it kind of, it's the two-parter, right? The first part is Valentine sort of pushing his legacy onto Clary by telling her that she's his greatest creation, whatever. The second part is sort of Jonathan's influence, but also both relatives' influence. I deliberately tried to find clips of all the characters going through the same thing. So you've got Valentine dying, and he's on his hands and knees. You've got Jonathan, I guess the Sebastian version of Jonathan, also dying on his hands and knees. And then you've got Clary going through the same thing. And it's deliberate because this whole section is about how Clary is not that different from her relatives. Or her brother and her dad claim that Clary is just like them. And that's the chilling part, because she might be. And that's sort of what the next section will obviously cover. But right now, that's sort of the realization that we're all kind of having to live through. And having that on top of clips where she's... Sorry, there's so much traffic outside of my home. Having that over clips where she is doing the exact same thing, or suffering in the exact same way that these other characters are, kind of sends that home. And then I just love this section. I know I've already played it like 6 times, but I think it's really cool.
You are Morgenstern.
Yes, I am. I'm Valentine's daughter. Nobody there trusts me. That's not what good is, Jonathan. Killing like that should never feel good.
But I'm also a fair child. I am not my father.
So real quick, I'm not muted. Real quick, the sort of turn, and I would say this is the turn of the entire video, because for about 2 minutes, I think. Yeah, for about 2 minutes, you've got all these people who are trying to, tell her who she should be, who is trying to tell Clary the kind of person she will become because of her family, because of her upbringing, all this stuff. And in the latter half of that section, you've also got her rejecting that. She's like, I'm not going to be like these people. I can't be. But then this section is like, hold on. She's like, maybe these people have a point. Like, I love the beginning of the strings and paired with yes, I am. Because the end of this section, where she's like dying and whatever, it ends with Valentine being like, you're a Morgenstern. There's another truck passing by. It is a fire truck again. I will wait until it goes. You've got this, like, ending words, right? When Valentine, like, died for real, and this was in season 3, episode 10, you had him kind of leaving Clary with this last chilling thought that he's like, you are never going to escape this legacy. Like, you're never going to escape who I am, who your brother is, who your mother is, all of these things. And saying that you are a Morgenstern is the point of that. And up until now, Clary has rejected it. But now she's like, you know what? That's true. She's like, I am a Morgenstern. And you've got this quote where she's like, nobody there, oops, totally missed it. Yeah, she's like, nobody there trusts me because I'm a Morgenstern. She's grabbing these swords. This shot in particular is grabbing the sword that belonged to, like, her father or her mother, because she, in this episode, season 3, episode 1, she picks up new weapons, and it turns out that they belong to her parents, and it's kind of a reminder that she's never going to escape the legacy of her family. And you have that, you have her pulling those swords in this shot, she's saying, nobody trusts me because I'm a Morgenstern, and then you have her kind of trying to be this image of good in contrast to Jonathan, and as we'll see in the next section, that's not the case, because she herself is just as guilty of doing some horrific things. I've got this section of Jocelyn walking with Clary walking. I couldn't find anything better. They're not really great connected scenes, but I just wanted to have the visual of Jocelyn and Clary doing the same thing in the same way that I had Jonathan, Valentine, and Clary all kind of dying in the previous section. So you've got that. She's saying that's not what good is. Then she's saying, but I'm also a fair child. And in that section, I think that quote isn't, like, I don't want to get too meta. I want to focus on the video. And there's only 10 minutes left. But I think something that's really interesting is this quote. And this quote is kind of what jump-started this whole video. She says, I am a Morgenstern, but I'm also a Fairchild. And the point of that quote is to be like, yes, I have this legacy of bad, but I also have this legacy of good. And Morgenstern is the bad side, Fairchild is the good side. But we can all agree that Jocelyn is not your typical hero. I wouldn't even call her a hero. She's really someone who's willing to do pretty bad things to protect her family. Similar to Valentine, not exactly like him, but that need to prioritize her family over anything else is something that Clary has sort of taken on in her own character. So when Clary says, I'm also a Fairchild, I thought it would be interesting to why not just point out the visual hypocrisy in that. You know, as Clary is pointing this out, Jocelyn is trying to kill her supposed son that has demon blood injected into him because she sees no other way to deal with him, which is a whole set of messed up on its own. Also, we've got about like 10 minutes left, and I will be ending in about 10 minutes. So if you haven't already donated, please try to donate. You can either do it through the super chat, you can do it through the link that I posted at the beginning of this comments, at the beginning of the comments section. It's the National Bailout. There are also funds within the description box that you can donate to. And we already reached our goal of $50, so I will be matching $50, but I will also check my bank account, and I will probably try to match anything else that people send. That's now. You can also rewatch the stream and not skip the ads, and if you don't skip the ads, then that money will go to me, and I will send that in, and I will also match that, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, let's finish up this video, because we're almost done. So you've got this, Jocelyn, you know, kind of being a hypocrite. You've got this quote where Clary's like, I am not my father, and then it pairs with her stabbing her dad, which greatest scene in the entire show, and I mean that completely seriously. You've got this quote, let me try and play it.
I heard what you did to our father.
I'm a victim here too.
On the shores of Lake Lynn, watching his life slip from your hands, how did that feel?
We all are.
So I thought one interesting thing is having each stab of Clary's to her dad, while a very good thing, like you should always, you know, be getting rid of terrible genocidal maniacs, I kind of think of each stab as like a breaking down of her moral compass. And that's why I have it sort of split up as opposed to just her kind of stabbing her dad all in one scene. I've got it broken up with her mom trying to shoot Jace. I've got it broken up with Jonathan telling Clary that stabbing her dad at Lake Lynn was really just as questionable as what Jonathan is doing, which is not necessarily true, but the idea is that Clary felt good hurting Valentine, because one thing that makes Clary so questionable or can make Clary go darker is that she really sees herself as the form of ultimate good. You know, she's been blessed by the angels. She's got these powers that no one else does. She's constantly willing to kind of mess with the laws of nature, of bringing people back, and she doesn't really care because, again, she's got that need to protect her own over everybody else. And while that can be a heroic thing, in Clary's case, that can often be a pretty dark thing because she's willing to do some pretty messed up things to preserve that. She brought Jace back out of a moment of, like, you know, anyone would, but because it was Clary and because her bringing Jace back was immediately after she had just murdered Valentine, that really makes you think about what else is Clary capable of. And that's what I think makes Clary capable of becoming a villain, because we don't know how far she is willing to go to deliver justice. And that's sort of the idea I wanted to contend with. Thank you for donating. That is my first super chat. I don't know how to like answer it, but thank you. I will I think that brings us up to 160 about. So that's exciting, and I'm gonna try and match 110. No way. I'm gonna try and match the best I can. But thank you for donating. I'm so glad. So yes, back to this video. We're almost done. Anyway, yeah. Basically, this section is really like, Clary doesn't get to tell other people that they're bad people, because part of her journey into darkness is that she thinks she is good. It's a very Daenerys Targaryen idea. She thinks she is good, and therefore the things she does are good, regardless of what those acts actually are.
Just let me.
I am not you. I was never yours.
So make sure you do it for him.
You've taken that away.
And I protect my family.
And not yourself.
So this is kind of goes on exactly what I just said, right? We've got these people saying that Clary is kind of a hypocrite. She constantly takes away choices from the people that she's meant to protect because she thinks that she is able to make those choices for them. And you've meanwhile got her also saying that she is nothing like Valentine. The actual two scenes that I used is Clary saying, "I'm nothing like you" to Jonathan, and then Clary saying, "I'm nothing like you" to Valentine. And by this point, we kind of know that is not true. We know that Clary is capable of the same heinous acts that Valentine and Jonathan are, but with different motivations. And that's what makes it so scary. That's what makes her such an interesting character. Yeah, let's keep going.
Taken that away.
And I protect my family.
And not yourself.
That empty feeling eats away your soul. It makes you feel like you want to die.
I can feel it, Jason. This darkness, it's growing. It's eating me up inside. This is not who I am. This isn't you talking.
This isn't who you are, Clary. Come home with me.
Take my hand.
I thought this was a really interesting parallel too. You've got two scenes. In season 2, episode 12, the Sebastian version of Jonathan has this really, really great monologue that like everybody loves, and I also love. And Sebastian is basically saying, you have this empty like hole in you that is a result of your family, of the things you've been through, of the loss of your mother, and you don't know how to fill it, and you're being desperate about how you're filling it. And I thought it was interesting that later, when Clary has this like weird spell that bonds her to her brother and she becomes dark in context of the show, and please know I used air quotes when I said dark, she kind of says some similar things. She's like, this thing that I have inside me that's tying me to this darker version of myself, because I see Jonathan as a darker version of Clary. She's like, it's starting to control me. And I think that's a nice continuation of that quote that the Sebastian version of Jonathan said to Clary earlier, when he was like, you have this empty pit, and it's one way or another you're going to try and fill it. And there's also a quote that Clary says in season 3A, if I can find it here, and she's like, it's eating me up inside. It's actually out of context. It matches, but the context of the quote is that Clary lied about Jace coming back to life, and it's eating her up inside to keep that lie, and she's saying, this is not who I am. But I think that's fine, like, because the quotes are the quotes. Because then you can match that to Isabel saying, this isn't like you, because at this point, this is what, season 3, episode 17? Oh, 18, because it's The Beast Within. Season 3, episode 18, and Isabel is saying this isn't like you, because at this point Clary is actually under like a spell that's making her do bad things. And then you've got Jace saying the same thing, this isn't who you are. And then this part with taking the hand, I love hand parallels. If anybody has watched any of my other work, that's like the number one thing I do. It's sort of a twisted version. Taking somebody's hand is meant to be like comforting. It's meant to pull you back from the darkness. And here, Clary is sort of wholeheartedly accepting the darkness. So I thought that would be a cool twist. We're gonna go a few minutes over time, but I think that's okay. I hope everybody else here is okay with that. Again, if you haven't already donated, please try to, and I'm gonna try and match as much as possible. I already pledged to match $50. We have already hit past an extra $50. So please, if you can donate, that would be great. It would really help some people. Yeah, and let's keep going. So then, yeah, you've got this section. Let's just play it out.
Today never stops.
This is who I am. You still believe in stopping demons, don't you?
I'd expect this behavior from a proper Morgenstern.
Not from you. I am a proper
So I think for people who have watched enough of my videos, and at least for me, I can tell when I start to burn out on a video, like, because you'll just see scenes that, like, kind of work together but are sort of just filler. That's how I kind of feel about this ending section, but I still think it makes an important point. So sort of what I'm trying to do here is blah blah, she's like, this is who I am, and you've got her pointing the sword at Isabel, and you've also got her, this actually interesting parallel where she pointed a staff at Isabel back in season 2, episode 1. In context, that scene isn't a huge problem, but it's just a nice, like, callback. And then you've got, what's it called? Her hand, blah blah, other hands. Oh, you've got, so this is a scene of Sebastian as Jonathan's hand, because he burned himself a lot. And way back in this earlier section, part of Clary's, like, realization that she might not be that different is this part where she starts to put her hand in the fire. The whole idea of fire, and I barely talked about it, but, like, keep that in mind. Fire is, like, this thing that connects all these Morgenstern characters together. And this is something I think the show actually did a really good job at, because something we know about Jonathan is he uses fire to give himself pain, and for whatever reason he enjoys that in a really twisted way. And so Clary's visual journey to darkness is connected to her putting her hand in the fire, just like Jonathan. And I think, where is it? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you have this, she's looking at flames here. In this scene, she puts her hand in the fire. So I wanted to really, like, emphasize that and be like, hey, this is a deliberate thing that the show is doing. I totally didn't talk about it at the time. But going back to this ending section, you've got his hand being burned. You've got, this is just a visual parallel. You've got this section where Clary's burning her own hand. This quote is really cool because this is another version of the Seelie Queen, and she's like, I never thought you would be capable of doing things like this. I only thought, like, a proper Morgenstern. I think it's like, I expected this from a proper Morgenstern, but not from you. And then she says, I am a proper Morgenstern. Like, hello, that's, like, the thesis of this entire video, of her finally accepting that darkness of herself and embracing that legacy, which is really messed up. And in this last section, I sort of, as she says that, I wanted to show the connection between her and her family members, so I decided to use that through the swords, because that is, like, the actual physical connection between her and her family members. You've got her looking at the, what is this? You've got this knife, which belonged to one of her parents. You've got this knife, which is just her trying to use it against Valentine. You've got this knife, which Clary is looking at, because that's the knife that she uses to kill Valentine. And then you've got the actual other family members in a similar position. So you have Valentine with the soul sword, this beautiful shot of Jocelyn with her own sword, and you've got Jonathan with his Morgenstern sword. So it's just this visual connection of swords and how that ties everybody together. And then she says, I'm a proper Morgenstern, and then this is the Morgenstern sword. I thought it was a cool way to end. This is where I got lazy, and I was like, let's just wrap it up as best we can. But part of it is also her opening up. So remember, if you remember the rebirth theme, we created this theme of rebirth by closing her eyes and opening her eyes. So closing her eyes is dying, opening her eyes is, like, coming back to life. In this last section, she finally opens her eyes, and it's her demon eyes. So to me, that's, like, the final rebirth is her accepting this darkness in herself. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I think we'll play the video one last time for anyone who missed it at the beginning, and you'll have the full context of how I made everything. Thank you, everyone, for joining this live stream. I'm really glad we were able to raise money. That was really the goal of this. And yeah, if you have anything else to say, any questions, any more money to donate, which would be really great, please do. I'm just going to close this out by playing this video one more time, and then this will be done. So thank you.
The prodigal sister has arrived. If she finds out that her father is Valentine.
Wait a minute.
I'd like to know more about Valentine's
It's
children.
Clary Valentine's. You're telling me this girl shows up out of nowhere? It's my brother. She's Valentine's daughter.
Your Valentine's
Your
daughter?
Valentine's children. Clary Fairchild.
Valentine's daughter.
I think just like your mother.
Unfortunately.
There was no sense.
Child.
Striking. Yeah, don't know.
I think I'd rather see this bit.
Are you sure? What? That it happened?
The next thing I know, Jace is gone. She's up there. I don't even know this. Mother is the one trying to kill her. How do you trust her?
Isn't that hard to recognize your own brother?
Hello, sister.
What we are seeing is the same pattern Valentine showed before the
What happened back then is happening again.
You planted the seeds for bending of the law, wanton defiance of plain law.
So when they got there, you let it go. What happened?
Hey,
I don't know. I didn't have to kill him. Just I had to draw a stupid room, and I couldn't.
Yeah, part of me.
But I couldn't.
I underestimated you. You are my greatest creation. Not Jonathan. Not Jace.
How could I possibly trust you?
You are. Because I'm your brother. This is what I've always wanted. To be with my family.
You and I are not family.
Because we're actually not that different, you and me.
This time, you're not coming back.
I intend to prove that to you. You will never be rid of me. You are a Morgenstern.
Yes, I am. I'm Valentine's daughter. Nobody there trusts me. That's not what good is, Jonathan. Killing like that should never feel good.
But I'm also a Fairchild. I am not my father.
Harold, you didn't tell father.
I'm a victim here too.
On the shores of Lake Lynn, watching his life slip from your hands. How did that feel?
We all are.
I will not go back to dust and shadows. Your survival just let me.
I am nothing like you. I was never yours.
So make sure you do it for him.
You have taken that away.
And I protect my family.
And not yourself.
That everything gets away your soul that makes you feel like you want to die.
I can feel it, Jason. This darkness, it's growing. It's eating me up inside. This is not who I am.
This isn't you talking.
This isn't who you are, Clary. Come home with me.
Take my hand.
After day after day, it never stops.
This is who I am. You still believe in stopping demons, don't you?
I'd expect this behavior from a proper Morgenstern.
Not from you. I am a proper Morgenstern.
I'll take that pain and use it.
And that's it.